It can be a terrifying lesson that comes with age. It's not that there aren't monsters in the world. There are. It's that the real monsters don't hide in your closet or under your bed, but can pass you on the street without you even noticing. Thankfully, there are a few people out there that do. Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel, is a difficult movie to talk about. Not just because of the subject matter, but because it can be hard being objective when trying to give an assessment of what's considered an important movie. So I'm going to break this down into two parts. The first will be a quick recap of the plot and importance of the movie. The second will be more of a discussion about what I thought of it as a movie and not just a vehicle for such an important message. Sound of Freedom is a story of Homeland Security agent Tim Ballard, whose unenviable job is the identification and arrest of people trading sexual images of children. When we first meet Ballard, he's on a stakeout waiting for a local pedophile to begin transferring files to others. When he does, Ballard and his team bust in and arrest him. While they gather evidence, Ballard's partner is seen flipping through a folder full of images of a young boy. While thankfully we're never shown what he sees, the camera is locked onto his face and you can just read the horror and sadness in it. After the raid, the partner tells Ballard he's unsure he can do the job any longer and asks how many pedophiles he's caught. Ballard responds with 288. He then asks how many kids he's found. Silence. Ballard asks his supervisor for some time with the suspect that just apprehended and suggests to the man that he too is interested in children but not content with just the photos. He soon gains the suspect's trust and he sets up a meeting for Ballard with a 7-year-old Guatemalan boy who we'd seen abducted earlier in the movie along with his older sister. Homeland Security sets up surveillance at the U.S.-Mexico border and Ballard arrests the man trafficking the child and speaks with the young boy. The boy, Miguel, explains that he was taken with his sister and plants the seed in Ballard's mind of attempting to rescue her too. The problem is, as Ballard's supervisor explains, Homeland Security can't exactly go into Colombia trying to rescue a Honduran girl. After some persuasion, he gets a green light to go after her and the search begins. First while still being unofficially under the umbrella of Homeland Security and eventually on his own. Sound of Freedom really is an important movie made by people invested in doing the right thing, and that much is abundantly clear. Tim Ballard's story and the story of child sex trafficking as well as modern-day slavery is one that rarely gets talked about because it's simply too awful to think about. Hell, I'm as guilty of that as anyone else. It's just so easy to look away from stories like this until you look toward your own children and your heart sinks. I saw this on July 5th, which was a Wednesday at noon, and the theater was 3/4 full, and you could hear a pin drop throughout much of the first half of the movie. And during much of that, there were audible sobs. The subject matter is about as dark as you can get. But like I said, I also need to talk about it as a movie, and the subject matter can't cloud that. I've seen movies that had dark, important subjects that were also entertaining, so that has to be the standard. Unfortunately for me, Sound of Freedom falls short, and that's a shame because there's definitely an exciting story here. The creators seem far too wrapped up in making sure we get how important it all is, as if there was any way we could forget. And because of this, scenes tend to drag on for no reason other than to milk the emotion, which oddly had the opposite effect on me. The movie's runtime is over 2 hours, and given the story they tell here, that's probably 30 minutes too long. I'm not sure if this was simply an editing issue or an issue with writing, but there are times when almost nothing is happening, except knowing glances that only waste time. I actually felt bad that I was as bored as I was during parts of the second half of the movie. This is a pacing issue, and I'd bet if someone took this movie and made cuts that would shorten the runtime and force the pace to be picked up, not only would this still be an incredibly important and terrifying movie, but could become a really entertaining one as well. Aside from that, the performances were great. Jim Caviezel has been around forever, and he's always been solid in everything he's done. While most will still think of him as Jesus in Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, I still remember him from the 2000 movie co-starring Dennis Quaid called Frequency. It's a really great little movie that I suggest you check out if you're a fan of Caviezel. Jose Zuniga is believable as the father of the two kids at the heart of the movie, and the rest of the cast is solid and filled with familiar faces. Even the two kids here are great. Entertaining or not, Sound of Freedom really is a must-see. So much so that Jim Caviezel actually has a mid-credit message urging moviegoers to spread the word for others to get to the theater. He goes to great lengths to point out that they have a system in place allowing people to purchase tickets anonymously for others to pass on to help those who'd like to go see it but may have trouble paying. It's pretty remarkable. Now I want to end with two separate points. First is that there's nothing overtly religious about this movie. The trailer leans into Ballard's line, "God's children are not for sale." And anyone familiar with Caviezel knows he's a religious man. In fact, both lines that mention God are dropped in the trailer, the other being,
"When God tells you what to do, you cannot hesitate."
Other than that, though, there's nothing. So if your concern was that the movie would preach at you the whole time, it 100% doesn't. Second, there are no politics here. At all. The idea that this is some right-wing conspiracy theory-laden movie is complete nonsense, and the fact that this was even floated by anyone feels like a clear attempt at steering people away from the movie. Other than the final act taking place on a private island, a potential nod toward Jeffrey Epstein, the movie sticks to the issue and leaves any direct accusations out. If you hear a critic telling you otherwise, they're just lying to you. Lastly, the movie was originally going to be distributed by Fox but was bought along with everything else when Disney bought them. Disney then shelved the finished movie for years, and it took filmmakers working tirelessly behind the scenes to get control of the movie again to find a new distributor. Unlike most of what Disney is currently putting out, this movie will actually turn a profit. With an estimated budget of $25 million, it'll likely make a profit within 2 weeks, and given the subject matter and the people going, it'll have legs. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see it top 100 million or more at some point. So while I can't promise you an entertaining time at the movie, I can promise you a moving experience that'll hopefully change your outlook on a topic which is far too horrible to ignore any longer. Occasionally, I think that's worth the 2 hours and the cost of a ticket. Until next time, thanks for watching.